Hi, Henley Mermaids here. Joan and Fiona.
Hiya.
So after a lapse of a few weeks, we've been asked by popular demand to put on some more videos. So expect to have a couple of videos from us over the next couple of months as we prep for our channel, Bristol Channel swim in July. So this evening, after myself and Fiona have finished swimming, I will be interviewing a lady called Noreen Kelly, who lost her dad, Eddie Kelly, to Parkinson's disease about 6 months ago. So please take a few minutes to listen to what Noreen has to say. And most importantly, please dig deep and give generously, which you can do on the Henley Mermaids website. So www.henleymermaids.com, and on the homepage you'll see a donate button to the Irish or to the British charities. Please give generously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi Noreen, welcome and thanks for taking the time out to join the Mermaids campaign supporting brain conditions. So I believe you're a keen swimmer yourself, by the way.
Yeah, I am. I do a good bit of swimming here in Dublin when I get a chance to, over at Sea Point in Dunleary. And I'm fortunate enough to have a holiday home near a lovely beach called Ross Bay Beach in County Kerry, and Kells Bay is another favourite spot when I'm down there. So yeah, love the sea swimming. Don't get to do it as often as I'd like, but I really do enjoy it.
We're here to talk today about your dad, Eddie Kelly, who I'm sorry to hear passed away from Parkinson's about 6 months ago. But tell us a bit about your dad. I believe he was a Kerry man and quite active.
Very active man as a young man, and really right up into his 80s. He was a keen sportsman. He played for Kerry as a young man and always had a great love of the GAA. I was also a very big Munster rugby fan, and we travelled all over England and France and Ireland, going to the Heineken Cup matches right up into his 70s, actually. He was still very active and able to do all that.
When did you suspect, really, Noreen, that there was something awry with his health?
Early to mid 80s, and I think what he had noticed himself is that his a tremor in his left hand, and it was becoming progressively worse. So that was kind of the first early indication, and also his gait was affected, and he was beginning to shuffle a little bit and didn't seem to have as much mobility. Now, we put that down to his age and, obviously aging and becoming very elderly, and didn't really at that stage have any, idea. We didn't know much about Parkinson's, or we didn't suspect there might be anything else apart from just the fact that he was slowing down and natural aging process. But eventually the tremor in the hand really is what brought him to the consultant and to get the diagnosis. And also another thing that kind of started fairly early as well is that the swallow was affected, and his jaw used to lock, and sometimes his speech would be quite difficult. So they were kind of the early signs, and they happened around his mid 80s. Yeah.
So what were the other kind of the daily impact of Parkinson's on his life then, given that he was quite an active man?
Yeah, well, obviously, the mobility was compromised, and he eventually couldn't walk except with the aid of a walking frame. He used a walking stick initially, and then a walking frame is really what enabled him to go any bit of distance whatsoever. The other impact really was, he was a mechanic and an engineer, and he loved servicing cars and doing all of that kind of thing. And again, because of the tremor and in his hand, he would finding those kind of fine motor skills were becoming very compromised. So that was something that he just couldn't do as much of, and that kind of got him down a bit, really, because he loved tinkering around with machines, and he was known as Dr. Diesel because of his knowledge of the diesel engine, and he worked on boats, and he had and he had a fascination with that all his life. And we never had to have our car serviced, or he reconditioned engines, he did everything, and he did that right up to the time where into his 80s when he could. And then just the tremor in the hand kind of put paid to that, so that had a big impact. The other thing that we began to notice as well is that the volume, the voice volume, and the ability to speak was becoming a little bit more compromised. He couldn't get the volume in the voice, and the jaw was locking a little bit more. So that kind of meant he didn't communicate as much as he used to. It was more difficult for him. And energy levels, it also affected the energy levels, that he just didn't have as much energy as he would have had if he didn't have that. So that they're really the impacts, and they were significant impacts on his daily living.
So I'm getting the sense that your dad was very much a larger than life character with a massive zest for life. So
absolutely, yeah.
So Parkinson's must have been a right kind of shock to the system, really. But
yeah, absolutely. I mean, he was slowing down anyhow because of his age. But I mean, right up into his 80s, he was out chopping wood and cutting trees, and neighbors used to be worried about him because he'd be climbing trees and taking branches off and have the holes, and was very safety conscious around all this. But he was renowned in the neighborhood for taking on tasks that men 10 years younger, 20 years younger wouldn't do. So he had that huge reputation. So that all that activity was curtailed probably much earlier than it might have been. And he was determined to keep going for as long as he could. And, and he did. But eventually the Parkinson's, rather than the age, is what kind of curtailed all those activities. So it did have a huge impact on him.
So, with all of that then, were there any upsides then, dare I ask? A bit of a bizarre question. Were there actually any upsides to Parkinson's?
Yeah, I mean, from the point of view of his daily living, certainly not. But from the point of view of the family kind of rallying around and supporting him, that became something that unified us, in the sense that we needed to know more about this. And he was very informed as well. He did a lot of research into Parkinson's, and it was something we had never had any connection with before that. So we educated ourselves and he educated himself, and that became a topic of conversation. And we just found the whole area an interesting area to know about, and we obviously had to cooperate and help out at home. So it did bring us together, and it also, as I said, kind of unified us in many ways as well. Was and there's, it's so prevalent, really, and I didn't realize that until I got into that world, how many people suffer from this. And
Absolutely.
Until it happened in my own family, I really had no idea of how significant a disease this was and the impact it had on people. So I appreciate having that knowledge now, and I think it's something that the education around that has been invaluable for me on many levels.
So finally, with regard to your dad, how easy was it for him to get access to kind of the specialist support services and medical services for Parkinson's?
Yeah, well, I mean, we did fortunately have good health insurance, so accessing a consultant and getting advice around how to deal with this was initially quite okay. And what we did find a little bit tricky was that there were exercises classes that were offered, and we became associated with the Parkinson's Association, who were really, really invaluable in providing information about what was available and so on. But given his age and us not being available all the time, his ability to access some of these support services and exercise classes was very limited, because his driving was also compromised as a result of the condition. And I think what would have been really, really helpful to us is if there were some support that could come into the home specifically to deal with the difficulties that the Parkinson's was presenting to himself and to my mother, who's whose independence was a little bit compromised as a result of all this as well. So that would have been something that would have been very welcome.
Well, you mentioned you're fortunate enough that your family could afford some of those medical consultancies and all of that. There are plenty of people that can't. So ultimately, a lot of the funds that hopefully the Mermaids will raise from the Bristol Channel swim this year will go to sufferers like your dad, who, you know, and others who may be less fortunate, and ultimately also go towards finding a cure and, you know, DBS in Ireland, deep brain stimulation, to help expedite that to Ireland, you know.
Absolutely, and I'm delighted to have this platform to you know, to help people realize how it impacts people, but also just, you know, the research that's needed, and the funding is needed for research into developing, you know, medications, and, you know, enabling these people to live as good a lives they possibly can. And as I said, you know, support services around visiting homes and having specialist nurses to visit people who may not be able to go out and access these services would be something that I think that would be a great way of supporting the charities around Parkinson's. It would make a big difference to people's lives. So
Fantastic.
I'm delighted that you're doing this, and very proud. And I'm going to go for a swim on the day myself. I'll make sure I'm in the water the day you're doing your Bristol Channel swim as well.
Noreen, watch this space. There's something going to break on that, right? I'll say no more for the moment.
Say no more.
Yeah, you'll be one of the first to know. But listen, on behalf of the Mermaids, I'm delighted you could join us, and very appreciative of your pearls of wisdom and your insight around it all. And if I could shamelessly give a plug for donations to the cause. So we're working with Sunrise for Brain Conditions, and Parkinson's is one of the 4 conditions that we are supporting this year. And donations can be made to a British or an Irish charity in this space by going on henleymermaids.com. On the homepage, you'll see an Irish flag or a British flag, and please donate generously to literally help people, you know, who are suffering from these conditions of Parkinson's, motor neuron, MS, and Huntington's disease. So Noreen, massive thank you again, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Great, and thank you for supporting such worthy causes. It's truly wonderful.
Brilliant. Thank you, Noreen.
Bye-bye.